Hello and welcome to the Morning Skate Podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Milcher. DJ, well, let's just try that again. I don't know why I can't say the letter J now, but all right. Hello and welcome to the Morning Skate Podcast. I am Matt Moody, joined by DJ Mitchell to cover the Thursday, March 15th Daily Fantasy NHL slate. DJ, how was your Tuesday night?
I think you already know this answer, but the St. Bonaventure Bonnies won their first tournament basketball game in 48 years against UNLV in Dayton. I was there. I was drunk. I was screaming my face off. I got to meet the great Adrian Wojnarowski, aka Woj, aka if you follow the NBA, you definitely know his name. He is like the best. I would say. Would you say he's the most famous analyst of right now, or at least for breaking down trades and deals? Like everyone follows him for news.
Yeah, imagine like Bob McKenzie and Elliot Friedman just like mixed together.
Yeah, and became MBA. He's a Bonnet alum. Yeah. He donated $10,000 for us students to get down there. So my tickets ended up being comped by the school, which is unreal. And I had an unbelievable time in Dayton. I know it's a hot tourist destination. So but honestly, a nicer city than I thought. Like people like don't, but I mean, obviously it's not like the nicest city, but it was pretty nice, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't there, but can't say I've been to Dayton, Ohio, to be honest.
So
but
we won't harp on that too much. There is still time if you listen to this in the morning to join the Morning Skate Podcast actual NCAA bracket on ESPN. It's wide open to anyone. If you go to ESPN, you create a new lineup and you search. What is this? I think it's this morning. You find it quick. I think it's just Morning Skate Podcast. Let me see.
Nice.
It is Morning Skate Podcast, and you can join that. You can join the PDO cast too. Join any podcast group you want. I don't care. But yeah, we're up to a few now. I think we're up to about 7 or 8. It's for $0.00.
Nice.
But Matt, I'll send it to you to talk about the other bracket challenge.
Yeah, so we announced on the Tuesday I guess the inaugural Morning Skate Madness tournament. And so the way we have it filled with all 16 seeds accounted for, what it is going to be, it's going to be a 16-person NHL DFS, I should say, DraftKings head-to-head contest. So we randomly assigned the 16 seeds, or the 16 people that we had, and gave them seeds. It's going to just be a simple bracket like the one in the NCAA, hence the correlation between what we're doing. So the random draw that we have for Thursday night, DJ, drum roll please. The number 1 seed coming out of the Montour division, Doug Leby, takes on Will. Do you remember Will from the podcast a few weeks ago, maybe last month? So that should be a fun one there.
Could this be the first time a 16 seed beats a 1 seed in the tournament? I think it could happen.
That certainly could be. So Doug has history on his side, but you never know. That doesn't mean anything in hockey. All right, so we've got Chris Denny versus Tyler Flanagan, Bill Penrod versus Brad Moody. Yes, my dad coming to take the throne of King of Daily Fantasy from, well, me, I guess, because who else would be taking it from? But I'm certainly not the king. Moving on, DJ, you are facing off against Nicole. So best of luck there in your matchup.
Yep, I am done. I am definitely going to lose.
I cannot wait for you to roster a negative in that. That'll just be so Bonaventure.
100% likely that I'm going to pick a goalie that absolutely tanks my lineup. It's been the thing these days.
All right, so now that's the Montour division. So the winner of that division will face off against the winner of the next division, the Pulak division. So we've got Stephen Friend versus Jay Willie. Jay Willie is the only one here besides my dad who wasn't directly from the group me. Jay is over at Roto Grinders, really sharp guy. So good luck to Steven, and hopefully Jay doesn't take all of our money. Got to show him what's up here at the Morning Skate Pod. Myself, the 10 seed, faces Mike Labs, the 7 seed. So best of luck to him. I cannot wait to just get everything wrong. Scott Craig versus JR, and Corey Ritter versus Bobby Boom. So We've got some really fun matchups going off here on Thursday. Just a reminder, if you are in the tournament, to send your opponent a head-to-head contest. I will be reaching out just to make sure everyone's got like their game set up and everything, and we're good to go before 6 o'clock on Thursday evening. But try to get that done as early as possible. Make sure there's no hang-ups or anything. I will add one more thing just to get this out in verbal before the tournament starts. If by some rare chance we have a tie, the tiebreaker will be the highest scoring player on a team. So say your lineup has McKinnon and mine has Crosby, and Crosby's my highest scoring player has 9. McKinnon is your highest scoring player has 11. You would win because your highest player scored the most. But that's just a tiebreaker. So
what if they're still tied?
Then you just go on down the list. If you have the same exact lineup, you can do another head-to-head the next day. Like that's so rare.
Yeah, that would be a crazy coincidence. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it goes right down the list. So second, then be second, then third, and fourth. Okay, so we shouldn't have any problems there. This isn't for huge money, but it should be a lot of fun. I'm extremely excited to lose in round 1. See, what I've learned is that if one of my teams is doing well, everything else in my life has got to go downhill. Like the Bonnies are good, the Browns are good, so it cannot. The Browns are getting better. They can't coexist doing well.
Right. They did
daily fantasy and the Sabres are terrible.
Well,
never mind.
Well, I mean, really, you kind of got some of that karma headed your way because Joe Thomas retired.
Oh my god, dude!
Lost a Hall of Famer off the line.
I was really expecting because I listened to the Tomahawk podcast. If you're a football guy, even if you're not a Browns fan, I definitely think it's worth a listen. It's very funny, and they were talking about how slim he's gotten on one of the shows. Like he's lost weight, and I'm like, he's definitely not coming back, is he? I'm like, he's like he knows. He's just like, wait. I'm like. And then I heard Browns are going after Nate Solder, and I'm like, boy. And then I heard it sounds like he's coming back, and I'm like, no, it's okay, whatever. You know what? Honestly, the Browns, if they could just win like 5-6 games, I'd be excited. But we'll wait for that to happen, and we'll get some daily fantasy football when that comes back. But for now, we have 9 games. Matt, would you like to read them off?
We have some interesting games here. We've got Toronto on a road back-to-back at Buffalo. Washington taking on the Islanders, Columbus at Philadelphia, Pittsburgh on a road back-to-back at Montreal, Boston at Florida, Colorado at St. Louis, Chicago at Winnipeg, Nashville at Arizona, and Detroit at Los Angeles. So, let's just start with the Toronto at Buffalo. Probably the biggest news from at least Wednesday's morning skate practice action was that Jack Eichel was skating. He's not going to play Thursday, but he seems close to a return. So that's I guess a small light at the end of the tunnel for you and myself personally, and really all of daily fantasy NHL, just because he's so awesome. But just note that he will not be playing. So here we've got the Leafs coming on the road. Buffalo, the last time the Leafs came into town, I mean, they put up a good number on them. So are you liking the Sabres' chances here, or are you kind of looking at the last matchup and thinking it was a little bit fluky? Freddie Anderson gave up a couple soft goals. Toronto outshot them heavily, and the Sabres kind of lucked out there. So how do you kind of feel about this game?
I mean, it's definitely not one I'd say is a safe fade by any means. The Buffalo side, it's like the pieces that you want are kind of overpriced, in my opinion. Like O'Reilly at 6'2", like I've mentioned before, I don't hate the price completely. I think that it's a little bit high, but it's not out of the world. When he was 5'9", I know it's not that much. I think he's okay. He's not quite the shot generator at 6'2", comparatively to the field here. To other matchups, I think at some point it's you got to look around who's in this price range and realize there's better options. And then other than him, I don't know. I don't really feel like the Sabres side's anything to get too excited about. They really don't produce great Corsi. I don't know. But then again, they're going against Toronto in a favorable matchup, so you could get it. In the last game, Scott Wilson had 22 minutes in power play one time, for example. It's is that worth even considering though?
Um, I mean, minutes at that cheap a price are always, I think they're always worth considering. If they're worth actually acting upon, I think is a different question. The reason that I'm not as excited about it is that Evan Rodriguez seems like he will play. He was playing on the third line in practice today. Seems like he's going to be good to go. So Evan Rodriguez was playing on that first power play before he got hurt. So that's something that I think, could mean Scott Wilson loses that power play one job. Obviously, it's not totally detrimental to his value if he's still going to play 18 minutes on that first line. Um, but I don't really think I think it's at best like a, deep GPP. Like you're playing a ton of lineups and just throwing them in because you want to try and catch lightning in the bottle or something. I don't think it's cash viable at all.
Also, a little note on this. I am just reading that Frederick Anderson did sustain an upper body injury. So he might not play tomorrow. It's not confirmed if he's in or out. So definitely check back in on that for tomorrow. Not that it makes such a gigantic difference, but I would just keep an eye on it just in case, We could honestly see like Linus Olmark for the Sabres as well, who got called up. So could have some interesting goalies for cheap in this game. But back to the Sabres, they also called up Justin Bailey. So did you see practice lines, official ones? Because
Bailey was
kind of
playing
hard
this
to,
weekend as well, so he played on the fourth
yeah.
line with O'Regan and Pouliot. He got like 10 minutes, as they all did.
So
So,
we're going with the
oh, you
same
mean
lineup
you mean
as
like
last game.
updated?
Yeah,
Okay.
updated at all. Because I mean, honestly, like most of the Sabres guys have been tweeting about the Bonnies, so I've been reading a lot of that stuff today. And I didn't see
They
anything about lines.
they were up. I'm gonna check Daily Faceoff because I think they should be updated there. Because I definitely saw them. I saw that's where the Evan Rodriguez stuff came from. Let's see.
So
Yeah, same. Well, actually, they don't have Bailey on any line, but they
hmm,
have Jordan Nolan and Jacob
uh,
Josephson there. So that, I mean, regardless, I wouldn't expect anyone cheap like that to be in a top six role besides Scott Wilson. So that's
uh,
probably where it starts. I don't know. Jason Palmaville actually at 3.4 has been playing on that first power play too. Or sorry, first power play as well, I should say, to not confuse anyone. He's still 3.4, and his rate numbers aren't great, but I think for 3.4 that he's a guy who's definitely done it in the past. Like I don't really think Scott Wilson is, you know, I think it's a different story for Palmaville than it is for Wilson. Just looking at some game logs, the last five games now, Palmaville has shots of 7, 5, 3, and 4 over that span. So like, he has some shot upside or some shot floor and obviously some point upside. So that's actually maybe a better value play than Scott Wilson. But what are your thoughts on Toronto here? We saw Nylander playing with Marner the last game, and then Kadri alongside Komarov and um, Komarov and Marlowe it was. And they just came off of a shootout against the Dallas Stars. So are you kind of thinking that's a fluke, or are you can probably get some value on a guy like Nylander, JVR coming off of a hat trick for 5.6. He's always a boomer bust
uh,
guy, but play him while he's hot, maybe. So what are your thoughts on this Toronto side?
I really like Nylander at that price. He's been a bit cold as of late, but I was kind of watching the game in class tonight. Don't tell my professor, and I was just like really in awe of how he was playing. He looked like he was really firing all cylinders. And maybe if you just get him with the right line, and he can flourish. So he definitely seems like a guy that shoot first. Although as of late it hasn't worked out that way. I don't know. Maybe with Matthews going down, he's kind of changed his mentality, but it didn't seem that way tonight. And against Buffalo, in a game where it might not be a must win by any means, but it's a game that last time these two teams faced off, you had the Kadri fight with Ristolainen, a lot of, kind of, you could just tell that there's a rivalry that could end up forming again between these teams. So I think they're going to be, guns blazing. I wouldn't be afraid to play Toronto on a back to back at all. And I think it starts with Nylander, and I think Marner, JVR, like they're all really good options here. I think you could pick any of them and feel pretty good about yourself.
Yeah. So I guess if you're stacking Marner and Nylander, the only issue is that they're not on the same power play. The power play one that like JVR, Kadri, Bozak, Marner, Riley seems pretty constant because that's what they've been doing all season. So I think that's I think that's a little bit disheartening. But that said, Nylander did play 17 minutes on Wednesday night, and for Toronto, I mean that's a really nice kind of concentration of minutes that we haven't really seen much of all season. Like the fourth line only played 8 minutes apiece, so that's like actually surprising if you know Toronto at all. Um,
Mhm.
so getting these guys at 18, 19 minutes versus the 16, 17 when Matthews was playing, that could be a little bit different of an exposure. So I think if I were to pick one stack from this game, I'm guessing yours would be Marner and Nylander as well, DJ.
Yeah, yeah,
All
I
right.
definitely think that. I'm not even that upset they're not. I mean, it's definitely better the power play correlation, but it's not the end of the world to get a little bit of each power play and hope for some 5-on-5 magic. So I'm down with it. Do you want to just move on now? We probably spent enough
Yeah.
time on that game. I
Yep.
do think
Yeah,
that game
that's
will
good.
be probably what 6.5, six, not probably 6.5, probably 6 over under. So definitely want to keep an
Yeah,
eye on. But
I would agree.
Washington at the Islanders is a 6 over under on Vegas as of now, with looking like the over being favored. So this one might end up being kind of the Vegas hot pick. Are you looking to get on that Ovi train? Maybe the line mates of Tavares tomorrow, or any of those piquing your interest?
Uh, so Ovechkin, I mean, he is obviously a great play. I guess now is a good time to kind of just talk about what Ovi means to you. Scoring his 600th goal on Tuesday night, just it's so hard to listen to people say like, oh, he wasn't Gretzky or anything. Like, I don't know. You just watch Gretzky's goals, and it's like, yeah, the goalie like fell backwards and he just put the puck in the net. Like, yeah, of course Gretzky was amazing, but like Ovi is the greatest goal scorer like you will ever see. I think like it's actually that insane. Going against this Islanders team that really, I mean, yeah, they just won their last game like 5-2, but they got their doors blown off in that one. So maybe that helps keep their you know some attention away from them. They do return home after a long uh, road trip, which is slightly discouraging. But obviously, Ovechkin is an outstanding one-off play. Do you have any interest in Kuznetsov, his line mate currently, and his power play? Obviously, power play one correlation there as well.
Yeah,
So Evgeny Kuznetsov.
yeah, I definitely do. There was also some correlation of Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, and Oshie, so I would keep an eye on that for their morning skate in case we get any news that actually comes to fruition. I would say that there's always a chance of a change, but you don't want to say it's definite. But yeah, I would keep that in mind. If all three of them are together, I think Oshie really comes into play at 4-7. He's had pretty decent shot metrics as of late. I mean, I just feel like I always kind of come back to him as like he's a bit underpriced, although I don't know if he's the best DFS build of all time. But at 4-7 with Ovechkin, like you do a lot worse. But I definitely am interested in Kuznetsov and Ovechkin no matter what. Just looking at that full line, full power play stack that could end up being maybe a bit under the radar if people don't check the news quite as frequently. So yeah,
Yeah, like looking at Oshie like last season when he was a really hot goal scorer. Don't get me wrong, but he was priced up at 6.5 regularly. Take cutting all that price down like you're doing right now, getting him at only 4.7. Should he play alongside that even strength unit, I think is a great way to kind of lessen the impact of a player like Ovi on your lineup, just because you know playing a high price guy makes it tough to stack the rest of your team with good players, which I think should be obvious. But I'm not really seeing too many like awesome spends on this slate. Like there's no Tampa. Pittsburgh's on a relatively tough back to back. I mean, I still like them fine. We'll talk about it, but we've pretty much got McKinnon and then the Boston Florida game. I guess if you like that. So there's really not like a one smash spot that I think people will be flocking to. So I think using Ovechkin like with some of that Oshie if it pans out, or with Kuznetsov, could be a really nice way in tournaments to kind of like give yourself explosive upside. But on the Islander side, you mentioned Tavares' line mates. I still like them, how cheap they are. Anders Lee and Josh Bailey are both below 6,000. They were together last game, correct?
But that whole line.
Yeah.
When did they last play?
I'm pulling it up. I thought you had them up. Yeah, so they
I
were
have them
playing
up now.
together. Bailey, Tavares, Lee.
We had 2 goals. Yeah, it was just a few days ago in the
Yep.
last. So I was like, I don't really remember.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
that was a game on a Sunday, maybe.
Yep.
I'm
That
pretty
was the game
sure.
on Sunday where they gave
Yeah.
up 50 shots and
Yes. Yes.
they won easily.
But
So
they had what Christopher Gibson, his name is, who just
yep.
went
Yeah.
bananas.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. And you know who led them in 5-on-5 defensive minutes?
Because you're asking me, I'm gonna say Polak, but
Yes, that's correct.
kind of surprising. Wow.
That is surprising. Maybe they're finally realizing he's good.
I mean, they should. That would be that would be ideal, I think.
They would have
but-
figured it out earlier. They might be a little bit more in this playoff race, but I digress. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, definitely. Pulik, Pulak, however you want to say it, he's somewhat in play, but they're keeping Leddy on that first power play. I never really played Nick Leddy. He doesn't really shoot the puck enough for me.
Mhm.
But that first line for the Islanders is a good play. And I think the first line for Washington, maybe Oshie as well.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on to game number 3? Is there any other notes there?
Yeah, I don't really think the depth lines in either of these games are all that interesting. Ekstrom with his line mates, just they didn't really do much last time out. So I'm kind of waiting to see if like Connolly or Burakovsky kind of steps up to match, their new top 6 role. But without the first power play, I just don't think either of those guys are all that worth it. And Backstrom is not a great DFS player. So let's go to Columbus at Philadelphia. Philadelphia at home here, having just lost to the Vegas Golden Knights in it was a pretty fun game. I think the final was like 3-2, but it was really end to end. A lot of great chances going both ways. And Columbus, I mean, we know Columbus is. They like to. I mean, they have guys who can certainly push the pace and play that sort of game. There was some injury concern about Seth Jones. He is ready to go. I know he left the Montreal game on Tuesday with some sort of injury after another smash performance. Yeah, so now his last 3 games, Seth Jones, 11 fantasy points, 9 fantasy points, and 7.5 fantasy points. That's like a really, really good goalie score over that time frame. So are you looking to ride this hot streak at all? Or is Philadelphia tough enough of a matchup where you're just kind of, hoping that he doesn't burn us yet again for the 4th straight slate while he's priced above 6,000 at defense?
All right. Only ended up having 14 minutes of ice time because of the injury. Both goals came on the power play. Yeah, I think I'm probably going to – I don't think I could stomach that price. I mean, it's honestly not the worst for, like, what kind of a player he is, but I don't know. It seems like something that just you shouldn't try to do is just jump on the back of something like this. I mean, it's not like – no, I just won't play him. I really don't think I need to come up with any crazy good reason. I'd probably fade the entire CPJ one. In general, that makes you feel any better.
Yeah, I mean, I like Columbus in this matchup. Like from the expected goals on the team level is like really, really strong. But you just have to remember that Philly's top line Sean Couturier for years has been one of the best defensive centers in the NHL. This year, that is certainly paying off yet again. When he is on the ice, I mean, they are so much better a team. If you are in the group me, I will post this like breakdown of basically the on ice versus off ice performance of Philadelphia, and Couturier is just a lockdown defender. Like no surprise there, but it's really eye opening to see it. So that's why I'm staying away from the first line. And I'll be honest, you can't trust these secondary lines in Columbus. Like they made some decent trades to pick up Letestu and Vanek at the deadline, and they're playing. But you just don't really know which of these 4 lines now is going to see the majority of the ice time. So do you have an inkling one way or another, like regarding these depth lines in Columbus? Columbus if you were to stack one in a tournament just to get some value?
If I gun to my head had to, I probably would go with Bjorkstrand and Milano to get that power play 2 exposure. But others, I mean, they play with Foligno too, also is on power play 2, but I don't know. I mean, Foligno gets the minutes, I guess. He's just not really the most TFS relevant type of guy, but I guess I'd go there. I think Bjorkstrand's a good enough rate shooter with
It's just talent.
like
Yeah.
talent, rate shoot type of guy that I would consider it, but at getting about 13, 14 minutes of ice time in power play 2 doesn't normally cut it for me at 4,200. I think you could do better on this slate, but it's not the worst idea.
Okay.
Milano 3,300, about getting the same amount of times, but maybe not quite the same shot volume.
Yeah.
Milano reminds me a lot of like a young Michael Grabner. Does that make sense? Do you think that's a comparison?
Well, I actually don't really know enough about Milano, the way he's profiling.
It might be too soon. I just think that the way he's progressing, in my eyes, which is not probably something you should take to the bank, but we'll see.
Yeah. So if you're looking at the Philadelphia side, I think maybe the best play that we've got on the board is Wayne Simmonds at only 4.8. He has returned from injury. He's back on the first power play. But last game he played 19 minutes. Now, most of that was because Philly was, I believe, trying to come back late. And he got some shifts up there with Giroux Couturier as a result. But, I mean, if they're going to use him like this, we know he has that net front upside. And, I mean, in a home matchup, I think 4.8 is kind of it's just too cheap for a guy like Simmonds who can really do a lot for your. I mean, he can block shots, he can score power play goals, he can get shots on net. Like he really does it all. And so I think this price, while he's still this low, if he plays 18 minutes, I think he's a lock here.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a really sharp take. I also like Giroux. I think you could stack them together for that power play exposure, and if Philly is trying to score, they're clearly going to get Couturier and Giroux out there with Simmonds, Voracek, etc. So I'm really not afraid of any sort of any stacking there like that. So those are probably my top plays from this game. Do you want to move on to Pittsburgh at Montreal?
Yep, just going to mention Gas Despair because 5.6, just kind of getting on these guys as they fall down in price. Like we know Gas Despair has as much upside as anyone on the slate. So as his price falls, my interest in him increases. The same goes for a lot of these guys that fall in price defense at the mid-tier in defense. So I will mention that as a potential play as well. So yeah, Pittsburgh at Montreal. We actually just wrapped up a pretty wild game between Pittsburgh and the Rangers. I think it was 2-0 going into the third, ended up being 4-3 in overtime. So, I mean, that's a Pittsburgh game in a nutshell. Like they really, they're a team that, yes, they're really good offensively, but because they're so good offensively, the pace going the other way certainly leads to some value opportunities. And so I'm looking at this Montreal team sitting at home waiting for Pittsburgh to show up. And I'm just kind of licking my chops here. I mean, we've got some really, really strong values, I think. So do you have anyone here in mind from the Montreal side that you're looking at? Maybe this first power play of Juin, Byron, Galchenyuk, Gallagher, Petrie, or some of these cheaper guys as well?
I mean, we mentioned the punt guys last podcast. I don't think I need to dive into them too much, but I really do like Gallagher a lot. Gallagher, Drouin could be a bit sneaky. I don't know. I think it'll be sneaky because people don't like to play against Pittsburgh for whatever reason. Like, even though that they don't really have a very good goalie or defense, and like you mentioned, the pace can come back to bite them. Gallagher at 5,200, it just seems cheap to me. Still,
it's really cheap and he's not so good.
He just keeps going down in price and producing. And I mean, I don't know if again, I won't try to make it comparable, but I just feel like his shot metrics are another one that's just always been pretty good. I like him a lot. You never know if they'll switch the lines, but I do think that Drouin and Gallagher will be together no matter what. Same power play. If Petrie's price come back down to earth,
yeah, I mean it's pretty reasonable.
It's reasonable. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was at one point like 5.7, I believe. Yeah, 5.7. So back down to 4.3 3 on DraftKings. Like it's definitely a fair play, and you could stack those guys together. But yeah, I wouldn't go
Yes.
too crazy with Montreal. I don't think they're gonna have like plus 30 shots, so I probably wouldn't go more than 2 or 3 guys in this game or for Montreal. But that's where you want to fixate on.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think we covered Montreal. So on the Pittsburgh side, I mean, I think we know who the good plays are. Who is not a good play on Pittsburgh? Um, so do you have any interest in keeping up with this? Hold on, wait, where is he? Wait, oh my God, Hornqvist. Okay, Hornqvist is 6.8 now. So he was just 5.7 the other day. So I think tonight he was like 6.2, and now he's 6.8. I mean,
He's been
how do you
red
feel?
hot.
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly been good, but
No, I mean I'm not gonna play him
I don't.
probably, but
Yeah, I think on this slate, I'm finding the money to get up to Ovi or Line, who we'll touch on in a really nice matchup. Um,
I agree.
so
I mean, it seems like Pittsburgh got like the Montreal bump, and they're going on a back-to-back in Montreal.
yeah,
I mean, I think that there's definitely reasons to consider exposure to Pittsburgh, and if you're going to stack up Pittsburgh, I wouldn't call you an idiot. Montreal is definitely a team that will give up a fair number of shots, and
hmm
there is a chance that Pittsburgh could explode. But personally, I don't
at
plan on stacking them at
yeah
this point.
at their prices, I think that it's just not worth fighting. The probably, I mean, not elevated. It's not like I think Crosby and Malkin combined for like 2.5 points tonight. So it's not like that they have strong like recency bias there, but I don't think that at 8,000 I'd rather play Malkin over Ovi basically,
Yeah,
which is what it boils
I,
down to. Same
yeah.
thing goes for Crosby over like McKinnon. So
Yeah,
um,
the Malkin Hornqvist stack is not cheap.
no, it's yeah,
Not
it used to be a
cheap.
solid 2,000 cheaper. Now it's just
Exactly.
it's way up there. So
All
uh,
right. Just
yeah,
want to move on.
yeah, you
Oh,
could get some value out of Justin Schultz if you just are scared, but his price is rising as well, and that power play is so just they flip flop Schultz and Letang game to game, so you're really playing with fire there. But I think that it really just hurts both of their values as they continue to get priced up because you just can't predict with any certainty who it's going to be on any given night. So, yeah, let's go to Boston at Florida.
yeah. So Florida did the switcheroo last game, correct? Vetrano was supposed to be line 3 and got bumped back to line 2 with Trocheck and
Correct.
Huberdeau.
Yep.
That would be correct. He only ended up having 14 minutes and no power play time. Didn't end up, breaking us as you might have expected, being as we were very high on him before. But will you go back to the well at 3-6, assuming that he'll be back on that line too?
Um, yeah, not seeing power play time out of him, I think was interesting. I would just think that McGinn or well, probably just McGinn really, but you could bump McGinn and not suffer any ill consequences. But as long as Melgen is there, and I especially in this matchup, I don't think it's anything worth like going out of my way to target. So as long as Melgen is there, I think there's enough uncertainty with just the role that's going to be played that I'm not all that comfortable with it.
Okay,
But
but you're forgetting the key component to why you should play him.
because he's Frank Vetrano,
No,
I mean, okay, the narrative,
the
yeah.
narrative. Oh my god, why are
I,
we gonna jump all over this narrative? I was just like waiting for you to get to it. And with this narrative, I think we deserve to be kicked off the iTunes stream. I mean, Vetrano's gonna have 10 goals. He's from the area. He's from like Springfield-ish. He's
in
like
yeah.
in Mass. So, I mean, hometown boy getting let go for a bag of hockey pucks. He's not going to come back and have 5 goals. Insanity.
Yeah,
You
all right,
sir
guaranteed
do not
5 goal games.
understand how math works. Okay,
I
completely
I do
math.
not. You are correct.
So you heard it here first. Frank Vetrano, at least a hat trick.
Yeah. All right, at least a hat trick. So let's I'm just taking a look at some of these other wingers that aren't going to score 5 goals in Florida. Nick Bukestad at 5.4 fell a little bit in price after, a pretty strong game really against Ottawa. 6 shots on goal. The guy has just been producing shots at an elite level recently. So I think you are right to be a little bit wary at his 5.4 price tag, but he's actually been like one of the best shooters in the NHL recently. And so I think that, playing with Barkov, Dadonov shots have been down probably as a direct result of Bukestad using up a lot more shots. If I were going to stack, like I know the power play one is very explosive and Dadonov has as much upside as any of these Florida guys, but I think I would prefer Bukestad over Dadonov if I'm playing Barkov here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I ended up doing with Bukestad, Barkov, and Dadonov scored and Bukestad assisted last time. So it was kind of a weird scenario where Sasha wasn't the guy that, had an assist and that line scored.
No, you would expect that. So
which is bananas. And then the guy has 69 points, nice, in 66 games. He ended up having a point in the game though. Maybe he did have an assist on that. It must have been secondary. Maybe it was on the Huberto. No, I don't know. It doesn't really matter right now. Matters is I probably will be considering Vetrano. I don't really know if I'd have that much exposure to Florida. Like I do think Boston's a pretty good team. Bukestad's involved, but I just don't think I'm going to pay the price for Trocheck and Barkov tomorrow. I think I would rather try to get Ovechkin Line or another stack that's a bit more expensive, such as Tavares. I'm one. I think I'm trying to mention some expensive plays that I like more. So probably going to fade those two. And the defensemen for Florida, if they're still pretty expensive. Matheson's finally gone up in price. I always liked him as a punt, but now he's kind of priced correctly. But there was some news in Boston that we should probably touch on. Matt, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, so on the Boston end of things, Torrey Krug left on, I think it was Tuesday night as well. He left with an injury and didn't return. I guess he had x-rays done, so I don't know what the injury would have been, but it certainly doesn't seem like he is going to be good to go in this matchup against Florida. With Boston so firmly in a playoff spot right now, I can't imagine them doing something stupid like playing a guy who's not ready to go. And what we learned at the tail end of the Boston game Tuesday is that when there's no Krug, no Charlie McAvoy, who I think is done for the next month, right? Yeah, he's done for a month now. McAvoy won't be back till about playoff time. So with neither of those two playing, Matt Grzelcyk was on the first power play. Just a reminder, if you're trying to figure out who that is, if you type in on DraftKings, GRZ, that's his name, Matt Grzelcyk, GRZ, that's how you spell it. So he played on the first power play. I don't see any reason that wouldn't happen again as long as Krug is ruled out. He's 3,100. He played 18 minutes in each of his last 4 games, including 20 in each of the last 2. He kind of, one thing is that insane comeback they had against Carolina. DJ, did you even catch that? What happened against Carolina for Boston? No. So
I feel like I remember something now, but
I'm sure you do. But Carolina was up 4-1 in the third, and Boston scored 5 goals, including 3 to tie it from the span of like a minute, and then won it in the third. Like just an insane collapse from Carolina, but Grzelcyk was part of the catalyst there. So he had a power play assist on that first unit, like I mentioned. So I think that he's a lock if Krug is ruled out. I really like his game in terms of like a daily fantasy standpoint. I'm not actually sure what I don't remember what his numbers were, but when I was digging through him earlier on in the year.
He played college hockey. So
okay.
I don't know, because I feel like it's a lot harder to read players coming out of college than it is coming out of like the OHL or the CHL, I guess. Yeah. Leagues. That's just kind of me as far as like daily fantasy, trying to figure out what players are going to be and stuff. Like sometimes you get a guy that comes out like Jimmy Vesey, and it seems like he's a lock to be a very good DFS asset. That doesn't quite work out, but that's kind of beside the point. I did get a little bit of an update on these guys. Basically, DeBrusk is definitely out. which brings in someone with the last name of Fitzgerald. I don't think that really matters. And then Chara and Krug, there was no update, but both of them could be out. So Chara and Krug
Okay, Chara
are
too. Wow.
are two day-to-day type of guys. Um, Chara had an X-ray done after the
Mm,
game.
okay.
It's really
Um,
all I have there.
so with both of, I mean, with those guys in doubt as well, you could take another look at Nick Holden, who should be power play 2 and get a ton of minutes there as well. He's 3.5. So
But
there's a couple of really good value spots
yeah,
dependent on injury.
but in my opinion, Grzelcyk's the superior option at a cheaper price.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think
I would agree.
that's very much in play. And then, I mean, that kind of opens you up to stacking Boston one a little bit easier. Being at
Yep.
Boston one would be like Marchand Pasta. I probably won't play Riley Nash, although
Correct. I think you're right to do
but I
so.
think you could stack all three of them. I mean, it's honestly, I think a pretty fair play, even though it's in Florida. So do you want to move
Yeah,
on?
with back is back, Riley Nash did not play on any of the power play units. So
Yes,
that's my main contention. You're paying 5.6 for a guy who's not good, doesn't shoot, and isn't getting power play time. So
the
that's
trifecta.
yes, the trifecta indeed.
Um,
So let's go to Colorado at St. Louis. McKinnon did it again against the Wild. They kept him in check. He only scored one goal and picked up 4 fantasy points. Just a really dismal outing for McKinnon.
that's
His
poor.
worst outing in the last 9 games for him. Like, I mean, are you jumping on McKinnon coming in as cold as he is with only 1 point in the last game and only 17 points in the last 10 games, DJ?
I mean, you want to get on this guy when he's cold. Maybe he can jump back in and get a couple points. Um, I don't know. I personally right now I'm just kind of jumping on the Colorado bandwagon. I know. I mean, obviously you might say it's too late, but I don't mean it as in like a sense of I think they're good now. Like I think they've pretty much proven they've been good this year. But I really want them to make the playoffs. So I'm kind of all in on them tomorrow as far as like a fan perspective. And I think McKinnon is the one guy in this game definitely worth targeting. I mean, there's some other options here that we might get to, but I think McKinnon as a one-off is just a great idea. I don't think I'd stack him with Rantanen, but I think there's enough value on this slate that we've already mentioned that you could get McKinnon and Ovi and maybe even Line with a couple other stack. Well, maybe not all three, but you could definitely get 2 of them, and those are probably the guys that you're really gonna want. So I'm pretty on board with McKinnon. His price is I'd say fair at this point in the season. I mean, I remember at one point when it was like 5-5, and that was when we first started like jumping out. Like maybe this is considerable.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember after the first few weeks, I was like, man, he's got to turn it around. Like, he's producing a lot of shots, he's just not finding the net. Like, I really wanted him to turn it around. Like, I remember I called him out, and I know he heard. I want to go back and find it now where I called him out. I might have to actually dig into the archives, find that clip. I was like, McKinnon, like, come on, figure it out. And then like, that's got to be it.
And yeah,
Do you remember that? Do you remember that though?
Yeah, I mean, we've played this game. I remember even last year too. Like we played this game. Like, yeah, McKinnon's got so many shots, but he isn't scoring. Like, come on, McKinnon, what you doing? And then he turned it on again last year. So
Regressing to the mean. And
yeah,
this
I mean
year,
that's like you know Exhibit A. Why you always target guys who are shooting the puck because the more you shoot, the more it'll go in. I wish next game was Detroit at LA because Dylan Larkin is the perfect example of a guy who's, like you said, doing everything right in terms of putting pucks on net, but just not getting any luck.
and
So
you heard it here first. Bet all of your money on Larkin for MVP 2019. But
okay,
back to this game.
So yeah, I mean, in general, I'll be honest, this game is a total snoozer to me. Like, I like McKinnon because he's McKinnon, but I really don't think anyone else here is worth a look unless they're playing with McKinnon. St. Louis just isn't doing it for me. I understand that the Tarasenko is so cheap, and his line mates are pretty good and they're at home, but I just can't do it. Like the team itself has been so bad. When McKinnon isn't on the ice, Colorado is such a slow-paced team, anyways, that it's really tough to get floor numbers as well. Like they're one of the slowest-paced teams in the NHL, even with McKinnon. and that's entirely because when McKinnon's on the ice, he goes at 1,000 miles an hour and allows chances and gets more for himself too. So,
Yeah,
um,
I'm on board with what you're saying here. I think it's McKinnon or nothing. I'm down with that.
all right.
I mean, and do you think Barry has a stack, or is 5.7 just still way too expensive?
I think 5.7's okay. I
Okay,
don't I
I'm
don't
okay with it too, I
like
guess.
it, but
Yeah,
there's no one on the slate that I think is a hands, a heads and shoulders better play than Barry. And so I like the correlation there that he get with McKinnon.
yeah. If you're gonna go with those two, I think that's where you'd want to go over Rantanen and what is it? Well, actually, Landeskog's come down in price enough to where
Yeah.
maybe, but he isn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if the shots are there. It would be definitely like if you're gonna stack up on Colorado one, then you
All
just
right.
stack up on Colorado one. But
Let's
the
go
last two
to
games,
Chicago at Winnipeg. So the big news here is Paul Stastny is doubtful to play against the Blackhawks. He was a late scratch on Tuesday, so hopefully that didn't burn any of you guys. Um, but I mean, it did lead to some really fun, usages. The the Allers Wheeler line could be a thing on Tuesday or Thursday night. And instead of facing off against the best team in the league, the Nashville Predators, they are going up against the Chicago Blackhawks at home. So
yikes!
that is just that is actually amazing. Like Blake Wheeler is such a good player. I don't know that too many people will jump on this news. Like I honestly just I couldn't tell you like how out there this line, would have gotten because they didn't smash or anything against Nashville. I don't think he's getting too much publicity. So you get Wheeler and Line at least. I don't love Ellers at his current price, but you can't argue with the way that Ellers has been shooting the puck. Um, so I think this line is one of my favorites in terms of like high priced stacks. And I'm really hoping for some clarity on the Stastny situation at Morning Skate, which we should get because our boy, uh, what was it, Ken Weeb? That's what we decided his name
Yeah, I think we.
is pronounced.
I know we've been corrected a million times, and I think that's what we're gonna go with tonight.
All right. Yeah, so our boy Ken Weeb's going to hook us up. So tune in around lunchtime for their morning skate to see if Stastny is out. If Stastny is out, I think you can just lock in Wheeler and Line. But that's very injury dependent, in my opinion.
Yeah, but that's where you want to go. I wouldn't really consider any of the other lines.
Nope.
The second power play for Winnipeg is like extremely contrarian. I think there might be. I don't know. I wouldn't. I'm not going to play it personally. I would give it a look. Ellers. If you just go with like Ellers in, like I don't know. Do you think Ellers as a one-off is even like considerable, or is it just kind
Um,
of foolish at his price to like consider him as a one-off?
I
Like Wheeler's
just,
only a few hundred more, so it's like you probably don't do that, right?
yeah, I mean, it's just really tough for me to say like Ellers is a one off when I imagine Line is going to be super popular.
Yeah,
Just because he's, I mean, obviously
that's
really
the
good
line.
play, but also shooting the puck a ton. He has 8 shots in
Mhm.
the last game. So I'm more looking at like the full correlation if I'm playing Ellers.
Yeah. If Liney just shaved, I think he'd be have a couple more goals too. His beard is a train wreck. Okay. Anything on Chicago? I feel like we should at least mention
No.
the name Chicago.
Well, all right. The injuries are intriguing to say the least. I mean, Nashville put up like 50 shots against them. So a guy like Tays, I could get on board with. Been playing really well, and that line is one that I'm, heavily interested in. But I don't think it's necessary. No. If you are stacking, their power play looked like Tays, Kane, Anisimov, Hinostroza, and Gustafsson.
Yeah.
So,
Classic.
well, I spelled his name wrong, which is why I can't take a look at his price. 3.4 for him. That's, it's a pretty good look. He has 5 points in the last 2 games. So another cheap
Yeah,
defender
right.
that I think is a pretty strong play here. Um, I'm not really looking at Patrick Kane. Like I like that line but I think it would just be Tays and Gustafsson if I was gonna get some Chicago, which I don't believe I will.
I won't.
But
So I'm on board with moving on.
all right. Uh, So let's go to Nashville at Arizona.
Hmm.
So Arizona, we might just have to admit that they're not a targetable team anymore.
I think
Like
it's
in
yeah.
that with like I don't know. It's really kind of I don't really know how to put words on it because they're not playing great hockey, but I think that their relative perception around the league is still as of this like bottom dweller, which they are, but they're playing so much better than a team, like well, I guess I can't even say Senators anymore because they just beat up on the Lightning and the Panthers. But I don't think they're the same team that like people were targeting early and often last season. But that said, Nashville is just incredible right now. So where do you kind of land on this flip of the coin between loading up on Nashville and staying away from this game?
I'm on the fading this game side of things. I think it's going to be a little bit piled on. I mean, I like Forsberg and Arvidsson a ton, but their price has gone up for this matchup in general, and they haven't really they produced. But the last game, Arvidsson had a really good game. Did Forsberg?
I think Arvidsson scored shorthanded, so
Yeah,
I
that
don't
sounds
think
right. I think
Forsberg was
Forsberg.
involved.
Yeah, it was more of just Arvidsson. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Okay.
But yeah, I at that price and their potential ownership, I'm just not that interested. It's almost just a little bit cheaper, I think, than Line A Wheeler, and I much prefer that. So I think this is a fade. I think, especially if you think Nashville might just kind of get up on them early and kind of coast. Like last game, that's what happened. They got up on Winnipeg early and coasted. They rolled four lines very, very, very evenly and kind of just walked away with the game 3-1. And I think they're just going to do that again. I don't expect a huge explosion of goals for Nashville. And obviously, I don't expect it for Arizona. Although Panic and Chutrin, again, I think it's a pretty decent punt. Although Panic's price went up a little, I kind of doubt I end up having it because I think there's some better punts than Chutrin as far as
Yep. I would agree
looking
there.
like. So I think this game's going to be a total fade for me, but just important to mention those notes. And then I keep an eye. If you're going to play Nashville, I'm not saying it's the dumbest thing ever. Obviously, they're going as Arizona, but I'd keep an eye on if anyone sits out. If anyone's a little bit banged up, they probably put him on the bench for they put him in the press box for a game. So keep an eye on all that stuff for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. There could be some value created by these like maintenance games that they've been giving out recently. Um, but I'm not seeing anything like right now that would necessitate discussion. So let's go to Detroit at LA. I mentioned the Dylan Larkin just because his shot numbers are so good lately. I'm not a fan of Detroit in this matchup. I'm not really a fan of LA either. Um, so looking, I believe they had a pretty strong comeback in the third period because I was watching the game and then I fell asleep when it was like 3-1 Arizona, and they ended up winning 4-3 in a shootout. So just trying to make some sense of what happened. It appears as if the oh man, I remember what happened, but I don't recall the exact circumstances. So Carter was playing with Reeder and Lewis, but I think that might have changed late in the third. I'm not seeing anything obvious, so I could just be wrong there. But I think what's more interesting is that the power play went back to kind of what we expected it to be with Brown, Doughty, Muzzin, Carter, Kopitar. No Dion Phaneuf up there, like no Pearson, no Toffoli. So it changes where I'm looking in this game, but I think that my favorite play here would just be Drew Doughty. Um,
Yes.
I mean, for whatever reason, the sim was just all over Doughty. I mean, it's always all over Doughty, and I think it's because it does take into account the average time on ice. So, like, some guys can be really, really good rate producers, and they might only play 20 to 22 minutes a night as a number one defenseman. Think like Torrey Krug. And then there's a guy like Drew Doughty who, might have much worse rate stats, but because he literally plays like 5 to 6 more minutes a night, those rates kind of wash themselves out. And so when a guy like Doughty manages to pick up a couple points, I mean, you're just in for Smash City, and that's what Doughty did on Tuesday night, picking up 2 assists to go with 11 blocks plus shots. So Yeah, I mean he's expensive, but again, there's no one on this slate that I think is like a must play defensively. So I think that price is really good for the minutes and upside combo that Doughty provides. Any thoughts on anyone else other than Doughty on the LA side?
Um, I mean, you could stack him with Carter. I think it's pretty expensive. I think you could do better at center, but I think if I was gonna stack him with anyone, it would be Jeff Carter. It's probably my favorite player in this
Yeah,
in this game. But
I
what go? But
think Carter. I think Carter heard us ask why he was so expensive. Because,
wait,
like, you look at his game logs, and we were saying on Tuesday, like, yeah, I mean, he's been okay since coming off of injury, but there's nothing spectacular in there. And then the guy goes out and scores 2 goals and just
yeah,
kind
that's
of
true. Okay, that's
shoves
easy
it in
now.
our face.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff Carter's a good player. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just at 6'6", it's kind of tough to swallow. I think that puts him in the top 10 at least. He's about top 10. Well, if you take out the guys with injuries, and yeah, he's in the top 10 as far as price. But in his kind of little price range there, let's just say you had Trocheck, Carter, Kateria, and Kopitar. Like, who would you take out of that group?
It's a interesting.
Yeah,
All right, let's see. Did you include Barkov in that group or no? Did you go
no, but
down a bit lower?
I don't know.
Um,
Do you want Barkov in that group?
I mean, so of the guys you mentioned, I actually think maybe Carter.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Um,
saying. I think
yeah,
at his price, like in that
yeah.
range, I think he's fine.
I like how he wasn't just stapled to Reeder and Lewis. Like Carter played 21 minutes, and Lewis and Reeder each played 14 and 12 minutes, respectively. So they're getting him out there like as a winger on the Kopitar line. He played a little bit with like the Foley line. So I think that's better than what I anticipated going in when they put Carter on the second line and Foley on the fourth line, and just seemed like they were going to stick with that. So in a fluid situation such as that, I think Carter makes for a better play. All right, so let's do some
Yeah, stacks
stacks and
goals.
guaranteed goals.
Um, I'll let you start tonight because I know last time I just jumped right in and stole yours.
I'm going to go with the Winnipeg stack of Wheeler, Line, and Ellers as just
I'm
the
glad.
expensive.
I'm glad I let you go first because I was absolutely going to go there.
Yeah.
All right, I'll go with Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, potentially Oshie. Just those two for now, and then if Oshie's there, throw him in. If not, just kind of those two, I think.
Um, all right, so there were a couple of cheaper stacks that I really liked. But I think the one I'm going to land on is the Montreal. Um, I'm going to go with Gallagher and Petrie. If you want, you can add on. Drouin. I don't know how I feel about Paul Byron. I just don't think I'll do it. Um, and so interestingly, they had 3 power play goals with the first unit. Byron was out there for one of them. Shaw was out there for one of them, and Arturi Lehkonen for another. Um, that's interesting, at least. So I think Gallagher and Petrie are like the two best of that group, but you could also throw in a couple of guys, it appears, that could get some like sneaky power play correlation with them as well, and not just Paul Byron, who I don't think is a good fantasy player at all. Like Lehkonen is a good play. So do you want to take yours?
Um, I mean, this isn't really a cheap stack, but Nylander and Marner, I really do like it tomorrow a lot. Going against my Sabres, um, it almost is exactly like keeping you on your average remaining per player salary. So it's very like averages out to be kind of mid tier. So I like that stack. It doesn't correlate well on the power play, so maybe you could throw in JVR as well if you're really liking Toronto and try to get like some exposure across lines. Still kind of keeping it right in the mid tier.
Okay. All right. So guaranteed goals. Do you want to go first?
Um, yeah, I'll go with Pasternak. I know we didn't really talk about what.
That was, oh my god. Okay, take your next one. I want
Wait,
to see if we
why?
go 2 for 2. Take my guys. Go 2 for 2. Do it.
You were gonna.
You got
Wait,
this.
why were you were gonna go pasta too, weren't you? Like, is that what you're
I
saying?
literally was. So
Oh man.
go for your next one
Well,
because
I know who you're gonna say now because I.
yeah.
All right,
All
can you
right,
just
you
go
want
with
it? No,
yours first? No, no,
no.
you
Look,
please.
I can get creative. Let's do this.
Is it Wayne Simmons?
Yeah, it was.
Dude, I literally. All right, stolen.
All right. All right, I'm gonna go with Nick Bukestad instead. The other side of that game, grab a top sixer, Bukestad, who's been shooting the puck a ton. Um, let's see, going probably mid sixes or so. Nothing I'm too in love with. All right, you want Wayne Simmons? I'm gonna say that Gossespierre just misses this the stick of Simmons and scores a power play goal that Simmons doesn't get a part of, just to spite you.
All right, that's fine. That's fine. No, it's really funny because I really do like the pasta Breslik. Is that
Yeah,
Breslik?
yep.
I really kind of just like those two. You could throw Marchand in there as well, but that's a bit more expensive. I might try to just get up to Ovechkin in this scenario, and I think with Simmons, like if you went pasta Simmons, Ovechkin, Grzelcyk, it's a pretty good starting point that I think I'm going to have tomorrow for my lineups, and then you know I think you could see where Kuznetsov could come in and some other things. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now, at least for one of my GPP lineups. Yeah.
Yeah, so just a reminder, if you are in the Morning Skate Madness tournament, and well, if you missed us talk about the seedings somehow, even though we just did it at the beginning of the show, you can find those on Twitter. If you're not in the group me, you should join that. We'll be sweating out the bracket in there, so it should be a good time. Anything you want to say before we sign off?
Well, since it's Thursday, we probably won't record for a little while. So, one piece of news I just saw was that Jared Spurgeon should miss the next month of hockey.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind for Minnesota. Obviously they're not on this late, but just a little bit of news. Other than that, enjoy the March Madness if you're into that kind of stuff. I will be 3 TVs deep all day tomorrow. My professor, who went to Alabama undergrad, is traveling to Pittsburgh, so I have off. I'll be watching college basketball all day. Root for the Bonnies if you have no one to root for, and that's all I got.
All right. One more thing for the February Listener League. We tried to set up a head-to-head between our two winners, Travis Johnson and No Angle Just Angle. No Angle Just Angle, if you're out there, we couldn't figure out what your group me name was. No one ever responded to claim it. So Travis, congrats on winning the February League. Where we'll have you on at some point in the near future if you're interested. And No Angle Just Angle, come in to say hi. Sorry you missed out, but he sent you 2 head-to-heads, and you never accepted them for the true Morning Skate Podcast League February champion. So I guess you'll have to get us in March. So yeah, that will do it for the slate. From Doug, from DJ, and from myself, have a slate, everybody, and we will see ya.